you guys. I wanted to start bringing you some more nerdy nuggets. Definitely going to have to make a new thumbnail and stuff like that. But I'm a nerd and I get to share it with you guys when I find something cool. An underwater volcano off the Oregon coast is ballooning with lava and set to erupt for the first time since 2015. Also, I want to give you guys information. I know some lovely people and lovely listeners live in Oregon, and I want y'all to be safe. A submarine volcano 300 miles off the coast of Oregon could erupt for the first time since 2015, spewing very fluid lava into the sea, where scientists were recently recording more than 1,000 earthquakes a day. Axial seamount, which has exhibited increasing volcanic activity. So I guess this is the axial seamount right here. Look, I know this is going to come as a shock to you. I am not a geologist and I am not a scienceologist. I'm not a volcanologist. So I'm just reading the words. But it looks like right here, the Juan de Fuca Ridge, the Juan de Fuca Plate. Oh my gosh. Now I have to get into geology to see how many close to curse words we have, for noble reasons in science and curse wordies. So this is where the action is happening. It has exhibited increasing volcanic activity, with science able to measure the swelling of the underwater structure in the Pacific Ocean, indicating that the top could blow off with lava at any time between now and the end of the year, according to NBC. This volcano is similar to ones in Hawaii that erupt with very fluid lavas. Bill Chadwick, volcanologist and research professor at Oregon State University, told the outlet. They tend to inflate like balloons between eruptions. At axial, the floor is actually rising on the sea, and that's a big signal. Now, in 2015, axial seamount had a massive eruption that leaked out a surreal amount of magma, with one lava flow measuring 450 feet thick, according to the report. Now, for reference, that's about two-thirds the height of the Space Needle in Seattle, Chadwick explained. It's a huge amount of lava. Now, despite the intensity of that explosion, the volcano poses really no threat to humans. Shockingly, the axial seamount is located 4,626 feet below sea level and is so deep underwater that an eruption might not even be noticeable for on top of the surface. So basically, it could be having like a super volcano moment situation, if you will, and everything is cool and calm on the surface. Even if you were on a boat right now over the seamount when it's erupting, you would probably never know it, Chadwick told NBC News. Interessante. The underwater spewer is located between two tectonic plates that are separating, which puts pressure on the ocean floor, fueling volcanic activity. Axial seamount has erupted three times in the past 30 years. In 2000, or I'm sorry, 1998, 2011, and 2015. The submarine volcano isn't the only seismic activity West Coasters may have in store. Hundreds of miles of Pacific Northwest coastline could crumble into the sea if the Cascadia subduction zone, an undersea fault line about 100 miles off the North American coast, is hit by the big one, according to a recent study. The 600-mile quake hotspot could see shorelines from North California to Vancouver, Canada, seeking 6 feet or more. Now, luckily, the Canadian, or not the Canadian, daggone it, Cascadian subduction zone is located quite a distance away from the axial seamount, Forbes reported Friday, so there shouldn't be any fears of, the volcano triggering an earthquake or vice versa. So there you go. It looks like you will be safe, but good night, nurse. That is crazy. And it is amazing to me how we can have all these things going on in the deep ocean that we know really nothing about. I do hope that, look, I love space stuff. I'm a big nerdy nerd, but I wish we would explore our own planet too, uh, safely, not with like Flex Bond and, magic seal tape, but with real, robots, and learn all of the mysteries that we have here, because I think there is still a lot to find in the oceans, in the deep unexplored jungles, and to protect it. Look, I'm not all for the green new energy deal. I think governments being involved in anything screws it up. That's just my opinion. You are free to disagree in the comments. Just be kind to each other. Don't be a butt monkey. That being said, I think it would be a great adventure of a lifetime to be able to see some of these things through the lens of a camera. Let's be real. I'm an inside cat. I ain't going outside for nothing. But, I would love to be able to learn more. I think as much as the internet has brought a lot of weird things into our life, being able to, get articles like this to learn things about different lands, different things, how, interconnected we are. I watch UK news now for like a fiend for some reason. It'll change tomorrow. I'll start watching Lord of the Rings stuff again. But as much as the internet has caused a lot of issues, it's also really cool to have all of this knowledge at my fingertips, to be able to look up a YouTube video where someone tries their very best to explain it to a 5-year-old like me. So it is really cool, and I did wanna share this with you, because it's just a cool thing. Now let's look at the big one. A major chunk of the Pacific coast from California to Canada could sink into the sea if a megaquake hits this spot, Doomsday Study, warns. Now, this is from uh, April 30th, 2025. So it is related, and I figured why not give you a little, the big one. Maybe the rock will show up. It'll all be good. This should have West Coasters shaking in their shoes. Hundreds of miles of coastline in the Pacific Northwest could go straight into the drink if another earthquake strikes the region. An alarming new study has warned. A 600-mile, sorry you guys, I've had to take my Lyrica today, so my eyes are adjusting. As always, it does seem like, the cure is it swings and roundabouts, half a dozen of one, six of the other. If I'd like not to be in pain, my eyes are a little fuzzy some days, which, is great if I didn't have to read for a living. But, everything has drawbacks, so we just deal and go forward. So, excuse me my little mistakes, I will try to correct them, and if you catch one, put it in the comments, I am not it's not gonna bother me. I I love the collective knowledge of the internet. I love it when chat finds the answer for me because my brain is, gone. So I love it. I don't feel, like challenged or anything because I'm like, oh, cool, a different way to look at stuff. Now, this being said, volcanologists, seismologists have been going on about this for years. No one can predict these things. So I wouldn't live in fear. If I had a choice, if I lived in Oregon, I wouldn't. But, planning, preparation, being just in case, knowing where your route is to get to higher ground, if that's necessary, I think is a good thing. But, you know, we don't know when this is gonna happen, so don't live your life in fear is all I'm saying. I'm giving you this article, but I'm not the mainstream media. I don't want you to go, get all Twitter pated, buy a bunch of toilet paper, you know, lose your daggone mind, start, stocking up on ramen noodles. Just, be sensible. Have a go bag for you and your family with important documents and stuff, but don't go crazy. A 600-mile-long earthquake hotspot off the Pacific coast could be due for another monster rumble, and if one happens, shorelines from Northern California to Vancouver, Canada, could suddenly sink 6 feet or more, which would cause a massive tsunami. Towns and cities for hundreds of miles would find themselves in a brand new floodplain at risk of catastrophic flooding and tsunamis at any moment, according to a study published Monday in the Journal of Proceedings of National Academy of Science. The aforementioned earthquake minefield is called the Cascadia Subduction Zone, an undersea fault line roughly 100 miles off the north coast of America. So this is kind of what you're looking at. Look, I'm not a Scientologist. I'm not Miss Frizzle, but this is basically called the Ring of Fire, and it's a just breeding ground for seismic activity of all kinds. Earthquakes, volcanoes, things like that. And this is the Cascadia Zone. So all up here, very big, and they're monitoring it, so it's not like it's gonna sneak up on us, hopefully, allegedly, I hope. A big quake there could send massive tsunamis hurtling toward the shore and change the landscape forever. It could double the flooding exposure of residents, structures, and roads, the study warned. Bridges, power lines, and other infrastructure would need to be totally rebuilt or else instant destruction in a major storm. The land at risk of flooding would increase by at least 116 square miles, the equivalent of about 5 Manhattans, and the number of people living in floodplains would increase from about 8,000 to 22,000. And the number of at risk structures would go from 13,000 to 36,000, according to this study. Now, I do hope with the forewarning of this study, maybe building regulations have changed to kind of make these, newer buildings more stormproof if this is to happen, and kind of retrofit older buildings to meet higher, stricter standards. Yes, I know there's money involved. I hate the government having to regulate this stuff, but I also want people safe. And if we know about this stuff coming, can't we do something to fix it or ameliorate it before it happens? Because that would be lovely, but it is, California, and they did a great job with the wildfires. So cover your butts and plan for yourself, y'all. These grim numbers are more than a hypothetical guess. The study's authors looked at data from another monster earthquake that wiped out a section of Canadian coastline in 1700. Oral histories by the Huayat First Nation in present-day Vancouver Island, and y'all, I probably butchered that, and I am extremely, extremely sorry. I tried my best. So respect to the Huahat First Nation, but I probably butchered your names. Uh, Tell of a shaking that was so intense that they thought two cosmic beings, Thunderbird and Whale, must be fighting it out. So I have watched a lot about the Cascadia Big One, so I can kind of give you the story. So Whale was the good god, and Thunderbird was the kind of, well, jerk face in this. And Whale was doing all good whale things in the whale ocean, creating life, doing deity stuff. I don't know. Look, I know the basics, y'all. I'm not. Well, Thunder, Bird was kind of an ass and picked up Whale into the sky and then dropped Whale down, to go back into the ocean because what they had experienced was a tsunami. And it makes sense that if you don't have science, this is what you would think. And I think that, Western science has been neglectful in what we take from, people that were living on the land, the collective folk knowledge. Just because it isn't, technically science-based, there is still so much knowledge and wisdom to get from these, communities that we've really just left them out, and I think we've been missing a lot of pieces of puzzle, so I'm glad that we're finally taking and incorporating that in. Now, whole forests and jungles, or not jungles, villages, good lord, were plunged into the sea, and only 1 in 600 people living in the area are said to have survived, according to a paper published in Seismology Research Letters. Modern science has backed that terrifying tale. Researchers discovered ghost forests and fields of native grass that appeared to have been submerged in moments. So, modern science has really backed that up. They've found ghost forests, fields of native grasses that seem to have been submerged in moments. Of a geological snapshot of what could happen if the proverbial thunderbird and whale get into another scrap. Earthquakes are impossible to truly predict, but in the next 50 years, science have put the odds of a major earthquake at 7 to 12% in the Cascadia zone and 37 to 42% for just the southern section, which includes California and Oregon. By the year 2060, these odds will have roughly doubled according to the U.S. State's Geological Survey. So if you buy a beach house in the Pacific Northwest, you might also want to buy a canoe. Again, I hope that the local localities are taking this, forewarning, this foresight, and really putting people's safety, making, stronger houses, things like that. I hope people are paying attention, you know, and Making good plans. I don't want anyone to get hurt, but we do have knowledge that this might be coming and make a plan. Don't get Twitter pated. Don't like stockpile a bunch of spam, but have you a go bag. Be sensible. Planning preparation, it may seem like a drag, but it's okay. And, you're less Twitter pated during the time. I hope you've enjoyed this first newsy nugget for science, this nerdy newsy nugget. Uh, have a great day, and I will see you guys in a little bit. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, but have a sassy mouth and carry a can of bitch fire because kindness doesn't equal doormat, y'all. Bye.